Ils doivent venir dans la salle.
I'm getting you ready. Ça boy seat. C'est fini.
Yep. Wait for them to open up.
See my pen?
Checking une minute.
On t'entend? Tu entends-tu, Roger?
Oui.
Are we good?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Thank you and welcome everyone to the meeting for the Planning Advisory Committee meeting for January 14th, 2025. I'll call the meeting to order. We'll start off with any declaration of pecuniary interest. Seeing none. Next is the item 3, adopt the agenda from our last meeting.
Adopt the agenda for this meeting.
This meeting, sorry.
Perfect. It is moved by Dan Gagne and seconded by Roland Larrabee. Be it resolved that the agenda for the Planning Advisory Committee meeting held on January 14th, 2025 be adopted as presented.
All in favor? passed. Sorry, now we'll look at adopting the minutes from the last meeting.
Thank you. It is moved by Kathleen Marchant and seconded by Daniel Gagne. Be it resolved that the minutes of the meeting held on November 12th, 2024 be adopted as presented.
I do have a question, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Well, no question statement. I'd just like to make an amendment to the minutes. Councillor Rolly Larrabee did declare a declaration of pecuniary interest, which
at
is
the last meeting?
at the last meeting, which is not represented in the minutes. So I'd just like that change made before we
Okay.
approve this.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other comments? All right. So all in favor of adopting the minutes with the changes to the last minutes?
Thank you.
We'll move on to item number 5, zoning bylaw amendments applications. We have 2 applications for this meeting, 5.1. And I'll leave it to you.
Thank you. It is moved by Roland Larrabee and seconded by Kathleen Marchant, whereas a public meeting was held on January 14th, 2025 for the purpose of amending zoning bylaw 2014-45, whereas no written concerns or objections have been received to the proposed amendment, be it resolved that the Planning Advisory Committee of the Municipality of West Nipissing recommends that Council for the West Nipissing Municipality adopts the proposed zoning bylaw to rezone the property at 202 Highway 539A, and more particularly shown on the attached sketch, and that Schedule B2-1 of bylaw number 2014-45 shall be amended by changing the zoning designation of the property as shown on Schedule A attached here 2, which property is more particularly described as part of Lot 3, Concession 4, Creer Township, Municipality of West Nipissing, from Residential 1 to Residential 1, Exception Zone 5. Through you, Mr. Chair, this applicant is looking to permit their new garage to be used as a mechanic shop. Previously, they did have a shop there that was used for personal repairs to transport trucks. The previous garage was demolished and this new garage was constructed last spring. So the request here on the table is that to permit a home industry, because this is zoned R1, functionally because its location, it acts as a rural residential. Because when the new zoning bylaw was brought in, they just kept the previous zoning from the unincorporated township. So that's kind of the validation for why this is currently R1, even though it's unserviced. So they're looking to do a home industry that permits a mechanic shop and to increase the permitted floor area to 200 square meters.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions? Madam Mayor?
I just, in reviewing the zoning bylaw, the definition of home industry under 3.78 of the zoning bylaw specifically states that for the purpose of this bylaw, the repairing of motor vehicles, mobile homes, and trailers is not to be considered a home industry. So I just want to understand why that wasn't, that part of the zoning bylaw was not included in the planning report and not being presented to this committee for consideration.
Yes, my apologies on that. It was mentioned in the description of the proposal that it was for a mechanic shop, and then just my error that it didn't end up in the recommendations at the bottom there. So part of this site-specific zone would be to allow a home industry to be an auto repair shop. We have seen something similar in the past with a towing company, which does have fairly comparable impacts to the neighborhood, and that was previously approved.
That was not previously approved. I spoke with the proponent of that. That was a property on Dutrasac Road. Is that we're talking about the same proponent? There was a garage that was being used for auto repair. The proponent was asked to close and relocate that business. He did legally challenge the municipality's position on that and spent a considerable sum of money. And did end up having to relocate the business from Dutrasac Road from a property that was zoned rural residential. And I did speak with that property owner today to confirm the details of that. And I'm not sure what year that was, but it was fairly recently. And I think most of us know who that was. So it's just it's inconsistent, and the fact that the zoning bylaw specifically treats motor vehicle repairs as a separate use. It's not the same as other home industry uses. When it says home industry, they will say carpentry, metalworking. And I don't necessarily have an issue with this proposal in this location. What I have an issue with is us being consistent in the way that we apply the zoning bylaw. So what the rules are for one resident in this community, those same rules need to apply consistently across the board. And so that's where, for me, the issue is that it is specifically stated in the zoning bylaw that motor vehicle repairs are not to be, I mean, it is not a home industry. Those are the exact words from the zoning bylaw.
So if I may, through you, Mr. Chair, the previous zoning amendment that we're discussing, because of litigation, we have to kind of be careful of how much we speak to it. With that said, there was a zoning, a site-specific zone to permit a towing company to operate there. The challenge with that one was the construction of additional structures and the use of a lot of outdoor storage. And that's what led to the challenges with that previous one, where this proposal will be contained within the garage. So it's, and given the location difference with where this property is located, there are some differences there. And additionally, if there are concerns about using this as a home occupation, the other alternative is we could go to a highway commercial zone, given that it is on Highway 539A, and then do a highway commercial specific zone to allow, because the C2 zone does allow the motor vehicle auto shop, and then we could do that site specific to permit the residential dwelling to be an accessory use that's in its own building.
I would prefer that approach, just if I may speak for you, Mr. Chair, I would prefer that approach to it, because I think otherwise we're setting precedent that despite the fact that the zoning bylaw says that this is not permitted, that motor vehicle repair is an appropriate use within a residentially zoned property, which again, the zoning bylaw, there's not really a lot of room for interpretation on how that is written currently. That the motor vehicle repair is not to be considered a home industry.
Councilor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question was, what would be the next, if it's not permitted, like the mayor is saying, what would be the next step? And you answered, it would be to go to a highway, and but I would prefer, since everything is all done, and there is definitely a difference between the subject we're talking about, but it's true, it does have to be consistent. You know, you can't put the rules for one and not for the other one. That I don't agree with, but in this situation, there's a lot of factors that were in one case that it's not here. Okay? This is why I wouldn't have any problem saying yes to this proposal here, because of the way it stands. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? So if I may, I understand and I agree with Madam Mayor, more so not just in the sense as, because we make exceptions all the time for specific individuals and so on and so forth. However, the bylaw is clear on what it states, that it's not going to be for any motorized vehicle workshop or whatnot. And unless we go towards changing the bylaw at some point or something to that effect, I think we need to stay consistent with what's in there. That's my opinion. And also the fact, and unfortunately we weren't here in the past when the other circumstances happened for the different individual. So we're not aware of all that information and we're not privy to it, which is fine by me. But I also unfortunately would agree that for now, for myself, it would be a no until we get further information on the stance that you were given about the highway procedure to do it that way. Mr. Moynihan?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So could we change the request to
commercial zoning, highway commercial zoning instead of just rural residential? And is there an impact to the individual in regards to taxation?
So through you, Mr. Chair, the tax is based on the buildings and the use on the property, not necessarily what the zoning of the property is, so there shouldn't be any tax implications of it.
Okay,
I have spoken with the applicant who's here, so if we want, we can confirm that he would be willing to go to a commercial zone with an exception to permit the dwelling that exists on the property instead of kind of doing vice versa.
And we
So,
could,
sorry, basically my question is that something that we can do today? Or is that something that we would have to bring back at the next meeting?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, we can do that today as long as there's a motion on the table to amend the resolution.
Okay.
well, I would propose that we make the amendments,
So you're putting.
As needed.
You're putting a motion on the table?
Yes. make the changes.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Gagnon?
I tend to agree with all of yous on that matter, that if we can move to a commercial instead of and then being done with it, so it doesn't come back to kick us in the behind in a few years, let's go with it.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to make an amendment to the motion or to the application. So I'll need a mover and a second. So, Monsieur Larrabee, Monsieur Gagnon.
Would we want to ask the proponent whether he's willing to go that route, whether that's acceptable to him before we?
Yes, he
We
mentioned.
got a nod? Mark?
He was nodding
Okay,
yes,
that-
that's why.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. Because I don't have a problem with the use in that location. It's about the consistencies of policy.
Yeah, totally understand.
So do you need to reread it
Yes, so
somehow?
unfortunately, I don't have in front of me what the site-specific zone number will be, so I'm just going to throw an X as a placeholder right now, and then when it comes to council next week, it will have the proper numbering. Whereas a public meeting was held on January 14th, 2025, for the purpose of amending zoning bylaw 2014-45, whereas no written concerns or objections have been received to the proposed amendment, be it resolved that the Planning Advisory Committee of the Municipality of West Nipissing recommends that the Council for the West Nipissing Municipality adopts the proposed zoning bylaw as amended to rezone the property at 202 Highway 539, and more particularly shown on the attached sketch. And that Schedule B2-1 of bylaw 2014-45 shall be amended by changing the zoning designation of the property shown on Schedule A attached here 2, which property is more particularly described as part of Lot 3, Concession 4, Creer Township, Municipality of West Nipissing, from Residential 1 to Highway Commercial Exception Zone to be determined.
Highway commercial is C1, C2.
C2.
Okay, and you'll confirm through just because all the setbacks and whatever, but I would imagine the setbacks on the commercial are less than.
Yes, so through you, Mr. Chair, just in anticipation of this evening, I did double check and it meets all the setbacks. So it's just that site specific would be to permit the single detached dwelling not within the same structure as the motor vehicle building, which I think is fairly reasonable
yeah.
request. Yeah.
Sounds good. Any other questions?
I have a comment.
Yes?
Okay. For me, that is happening in our backyard in River Valley, and it makes me really, really happy to have this presented in front of us. If I may go back in the mid-70s, there were two twins. That's his father and his uncle. They went to Franco State. They were there to do just for shops and mechanic. And the teacher, years after, when he retired, he was asked a question. What impressed you the most in your career as a teacher in the mechanic at Franco State? And he says, those twins, how they were good at mechanic. And that's, like I said, father and his uncle. And so it's really, that makes me proud to to be able to accommodate and give them that chance. And he's a heck of a good mechanic too, so it's something that going down into the bloodline of the mechanics, and we're gonna have it in River Valley, so kudos, bud, really enjoy it. That's my
So-
comment.
Thank you. So all in favor of this motion? That's fast. And item 5.2.
Sorry, just 1 second here. Thank you. It is moved by Dan Gagne and seconded by Roland Larrabee, whereas a public meeting was held on January 14th, 2025 for the purpose of amending zoning bylaw 2014-45, whereas no written concerns or objections have been received to the proposed amendment, be it resolved that the Planning Advisory Committee for the Municipality of West Nipissing recommends that the Council for the West Nipissing Municipality adopts the proposed zoning bylaw to rezone the properties at 139 and 141 Hillman Road, and more particularly shown on the attached sketch, and that Schedule H2-4 of bylaw number 2014-45 shall be amended by changing the zoning designation of the properties shown on Schedule A attached here too, which properties are more particularly described as part of Lot A, Concession 3, McPherson Township, Municipality of West Nipissing, from shoreline residential with hazard overlay to tourist commercial exception zone 2 with hazard overlay. Through you, Mr. Chair, the application presented by the applicants, who I do see are on Zoom. It's just not showing on the screen here, but they are with us today. These two properties are side by side with crown all around them. The properties have been used as short-term rentals for a couple of years now. Given the new short-term rental bylaw and that 1 kilometer buffer, they are unable to have the licenses for both as they are side by side. So they're requesting to instead rezone the properties to a tourist commercial operation and legalize all the setbacks for existing structures to now look at these as housekeeping cottages. And we have seen a similar application like this in spring of last year.
Good. Any questions or comments?
Through you, Mr. Chair, is the intent to, I don't know what the word would be, to put the parcel back together as one parcel, or is the intention to keep them as 2 separate lots?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it is my recommendation that the properties do be merged on title. The applicants are requesting that they be kept as separate properties. Because these lots were created in the 60s, they are undersized according to current shoreline residential regulations. Or if they were to merge them on title, they wouldn't be able to sever them in the future to sell them separately.
What are, may I continue, Mr. Chair? What are the current lot sizes and water frontage of the 2 parcels?
Yes. let me-
I'm sorry, it's just so small, I can't.
That's okay. So each property is just over 4,000 square meters, look like 4,300 square meters, with lot frontages between 40 to 45 meters.
And the minimum for shoreline residential is 60?
Yes, that is correct, and a minimum of 1 hectare in area.
Any other questions, concerns? No? Okay, so is
So
there,
is this application,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, yes, one more. So does this application request specifically that the owners merge the properties, or how would that be handled if that's your recommendation? Like right now, what are we doing? We are rezoning the 2 individual properties?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, right now this proposal is to rezone the 2 properties separately, as that is the applicant's wish, so that they are able to sell them separately in the future. If you would like to merge the properties together or make that a condition of that rezoning, we would be looking to amend the resolution. And then once those properties were merged, then the bylaw would be brought to council.
And,
Go ahead.
sorry, I'd like to continue. What's the minimum lot size for the tourist commercial? It's actually smaller than what the shoreline residential is it not?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, it's 4,000 square meters.
And so these meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw as far as the minimum lot size for C3.
Yes,
Okay, so let me get this straight. They meet the
Requirements.
the requirements for tourists, but they wouldn't if they're combined together. Or if, yeah,
Right.
so they do meet individually, they do meet the minimum lot size
Yeah.
and lot frontage for the tourist commercial. The challenge is if they were to merge the properties on as one, they would not qualify,
to be separate.
yes, as a shoreline residential in the future.
Mr. Gagnon?
The question I have is what happens with the other, I believe there's structures on the outside of the property. Will that be a problem later on? Because it's Crown land?
Yes, so through you, Mr. Chair, once the application was provided to me, I did make note of that and talk to the applicant about that. They have submitted an application to purchase the Crown land to cure the encroachments, and they'll purchase a sufficient amount so that there aren't any setback issues there. Just recognizing that the process does take some time, and they do rent these as their livelihood, just to make sure that they're not out of business for, let's say, 2 years. They have shown me proof that they have put that application in. It is in the works, just doing the zoning bylaw in the meantime.
What, may I,
Yes.
through you, Mr. Chair, what's the nature of the structures that fall outside of the subject property?
Through
So
you.
I see one's a boathouse.
Yes, it is my understanding that you can see my mouse on the screen here. This structure at the top is a boathouse. This structure here is a bunkie that I believe does not have any washroom or cooking facilities in it, and then 2 accessory sheds.
Which are all on Crown land.
Yes, all of this is Crown land on both the east and west side of the property.
Sorry. And the property on the west does not have any encroachments.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Gagnon?
Did the proponent were made aware that our recommendation is to merge the 2 properties together? And are they in agreement to that?
They are aware of that. However, they are still requesting that the application go through as 2 separate properties.
In your opinion, as a planner, why are you recommending the merging of the properties?
I feel that by merging the properties, it meets more of the general intent of that tourist commercial zone, because then you do have all, I believe there's 4 or 5 rented structures on a single property. I do also recognize where the applicant is coming from for their future planning and being able to sell them separately in the future.
So how many structures are rentable at the time being between the 2 properties? Like, is the intent to build additional structure?
There are currently no plans to build additional structures. So there are the 2 main cottages on the property. This structure here is a bunkie which they rent out, and this one that is encroaching is also a rented residential structure.
Mr. Gagnon?
Do the owners live on the property?
Through Mr. Chair, no, this is their income, so they rent these out separately without living on the property.
Okay.
So I get, my question is, if we merge them, then it becomes more of a tourist, which is the plan that they have, right? So if they were going to sell, they're gonna sell their business, if you will, right? Their tourism business, I would think. So I think if we merge them, it doesn't matter if they're separate or not. I think it would be best that if they're merged together, like you're recommending, because if you're gonna sell your business, well, you're gonna sell the whole thing and not just half of it. That's just my 2 cents. Mr. Gagnon?
I agree with you, Mr. Ruck. If the owners are okay with with merging and to sell the whole down the line as one property or one business, let's do it.
I would support the application if merged.
Same here.
Okay, so do we need an addendum to it then?
Or you have to ask the
Amen.
owners if they want to do it, because if not, we won't approve it.
Yes, I'd recommend asking the owners if they're,
Hello.
Can you,
Here.
hi, can you hear us?
Yeah, no, we're listening. What do you want?
Can you state your name and name for the record, please?
Mustafa Sheriff.
And Farheen Kadwa.
Thank you.
So I don't know if you heard most of everything that's been said. So we will approve your application under the understanding that both properties are merged together. Is that sufficient? Does that work for you?
So we did, we understand the reasoning for it, as like if we were to sell it, we would sell it as a commercial property. That totally. I think the reasoning, as someone mentioned for us, was we want to have the option to, like sell one or the other if for whatever reason we would want to, like, and even if it is a business, would that still be possible? Like we could just sell one part of the business to someone
I don't
else,
think so. I
right?
think when it's merged, you can only sell it.
No, I'm
if
saying
you
like
want-
if it wasn't merged, like it would still work with the intention of selling a business. But let's say we for whatever reason weren't able to handle the entire business, we could sell half of it or sell one part of the
But
property.
it kind of limits our options where if it's merged, then it's either all or nothing. But when we purchase them as separate, like totally separately. So that's just our 2 cents. I don't know. Obviously, you guys are like the ones that are making the decisions, but we just wanted to give our input, maybe just some more insight on that, right? From our side.
Okay, thank you. So, but I guess what we're asking, so, Mr. Gagnon?
If they were to sell it separate, would the right-hand side of the property, does it have like water and sanitary to be able to sustain the bunkies or the or bathroom areas if you were just to sell one?
We wouldn't sell the bunkie separate. That's not the case. Like so they're basically like two houses, like two cottages, and then the one of the cottage has a bunkie so it's kind of all that bunkie is together with
There's 2
139.
cottages and each cottage has a bunkie.
So we
right?
wouldn't sell the bunkie separate. We would sell like 139 and 139 has a main cottage and a
Or
bunkie.
you would sell 141.
Yeah.
But what we're trying to say is once you join them, then we bought them separately as 139 and 141, but then we would no longer be able to sell it as that. So that introduces some risk to us as well, like
Yeah.
a significant risk because, if for whatever reason we can only handle one, where just numbers aren't working out or anymore, then we don't have
Yeah.
that option anymore. We're kind of tied to both. So that's just our 2 cents on that. Yes, sorry.
So, go
I
ahead.
don't know if you have another.
No, so,
question.
sorry, my question then, when you purchased them, it wasn't as a tourist industry. So that makes a big difference in my view, you know what I mean? So right now, what you're asking us is to change this into a tourism industry because of the shoreline residential, or not the short-term rental that we, bylaw that we passed. So you want to change it to a tourism area. So unfortunately, yes, when you did purchase them way back whenever you did, you were able to purchase 2. But with our bylaw about the short-term rentals, I get, and it's an unfortunate thing, and you're not the only one, I'm sure that it'll affect just in the whole municipality. But I mean, for me, if again, I'll return to the same thing. If you're going to have it as a tourism area, then it will be as a tourism area. All one.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you for explaining.
Madam Mayor?
Just another question in regards to the property on the westerly side, so the one with the larger cottage. The 2 bunkies that are near, that's 2 bunkies near to the shoreline that are both rented?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is a boathouse, which is the one, the most western structure.
Okay,
And then just beside that to the east, that is the bunkie, and then the main cottage, and then the one that's closest to the road is just a shed.
okay. And so that bunkie, as we're describing it, is not a sleep cabin. It is a full detached accessory dwelling with a kitchen and a bathroom?
Not by the looks of it.
No.
I understand.
No, well, okay, so I'd just like to understand, so what's the composition of the bunkie? Is it what we would call a sleep cabin?
It's just a sleep space. There's no kitchen, there's no bathroom, just open space for a bed.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Mr. Guanyi?
So I just want to understand, if we merge the properties together and identify it as a tourist area, can the request be made to separate them later on if it's not working as they intended? Does something stop us or stop the
They could-
owners from
They could separate.
requesting to separate them after?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the applicants could request to sever it, given that the properties are of sufficient size for the tourist commercial zone. The challenge is, in my opinion, I wouldn't recommend or support a severance in that zone because it would be taking it back more into that shoreline residential intent, which is what we're trying to avoid by merging them here. And the property isn't of sufficient size for a shoreline residential property because each property is about 4,300 square meters and your shoreline residential requirement is 1 hectare.
Okay, thank you. You answered my question.
Also, well, I can't see if your hand's up or not, but I can. Also, I mean, if they're also looking at purchasing some of the crown land around them, I don't know how much they're looking at. So I don't know if that would help them in the future if they do decide to separate, right? I don't think there's a hectare there, but I mean, that might be something at that point in time. If we do decide here today that to move forward, we're gonna merge. And in the future, if they want to separate and if they purchase ground land, then the lots will obviously be bigger. Mr. Larrabee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know if their plans are to purchase a property from M&R to accommodate bigger lots, the M&R, I'm sure will favor if they are one. Because that too, well, you've got 2 serial numbers and it makes it a little bit more complicated. But if it's one lot, it's easier. It'll be working in their advantage also.
Okay. So I guess my question to you guys is, are you willing for us to vote on this? Because the consent that I'm getting right now from the committee is that we're willing to approve this if they're merged. Are you guys okay with that?
Yes, no, 100%. We just wanted to give our insights and just have the conversation. We're good with that.
Okay. Thank you. So on that note, I'll put it to a vote that this application, if you
Sorry,
guys are
you'll
willing.
need- Do you need an amendment first?
Well, that's what I asked earlier, but,
Yes, if I could have an
Oh, okay.
amendment to
A
make a,
so a motion?
yes, to make a condition that,
So, Madam Mayor?
Do you want to write the motion or do you want me to say something? I'd like to propose an amendment to the app, or to the initial resolution, that the properties are to be merged before creating first, or rezoning them to tourist commercial.
So can I get a second? Mr. Goñi? Madam Mayor? Mr. Goñi?
perfect.
All right, so I will bring it to a vote. So all in favor of, oh, well, yeah, that's true. Are you going to read it again?
I can.
Yeah.
Whereas a public meeting was held on January 14th, 2025 for the purpose of amending zoning bylaw 2014-45, whereas no written concerns or objections have been received to the proposed amendment, be it resolved that the Planning Advisory Committee for the Municipality of West Nipissing recommends, on the condition that the properties be merged, that the Council for the West Nipissing Municipality adopts the proposed zoning bylaw to rezone the properties at 139 and 141 Hillman Road, and more particularly shown on the attached sketch, schedule H2-4 of bylaw 2014-45 shall be amended by changing the zoning designation of the properties shown on Schedule A attached hereto, which properties are more particularly described as part of Lot A, Concession 3, McPherson Township, Municipality of West Nipissing, from shoreline residential with hazard overlay to tourist commercial zone, exception zone 2 with hazard overlay.
All in favor? Carry.
Thank you.
Item number 6, alternate meeting dates.
It is moved by Roland Larrabee and seconded by Dan Gagné. Be it resolved that where statutory holidays and council meetings supersede the regularly scheduled West Nipissing Planning Advisory Committee meetings, that the Planning Advisory Committee shall meet on the second Thursday of the month. Through Mr. Chair, bringing this forward, new year, new us, recognizing that oftentimes council does move their meetings in the summer months to kind of the middle Tuesday, which sometimes falls on our committee dates. And this year as well, Remembrance Day is on a scheduled meeting, so there's potential 3 meetings that would have to move. Just for transparency, long-term planning, if we'd be willing to kind of preemptively reschedule those to the Thursday of the week. If there's a certain date or a certain reason that doesn't work, we could look at another option. Just trying to get ahead of the game and get our schedule in for the year.
Thank you. Anybody have any concerns?
Oh,
Any questions? No? Okay. So all in favor? Careful.
Thank you.
And adjournment.
It is moved by Roland Larrabee and seconded by Kathleen Rochon. Be it resolved that the West Nipissing Planning Advisory Committee meeting held on January 14th, 2025 be adjourned to February 11th, 2025.
All in favor? Carry.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
you said February 11th?
Yes.
We're not changing right away then, huh?
Roger, we'll be back at 7 to start PAC or Committee of Adjustment.
Okay, see you then.
Oh,